Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It's not a podcast, it's a phenomenon. Here are your hosts, former Fox News political correspondent Joel Waldman and his mom, Carmela, a licensed marriage therapist and Holocaust survivor.
And Carm, I am super stoked, as they say in California, for this episode of Surviving the Survivor. This is a name that everyone who grew up in New York, New Jersey, and the rest of the country, for that matter, knows because he covers the Olympics as well and national sports. Bruce Beck is going to be on the show in just a couple of minutes. We just talked to him, and I know you're going to blow it once again by talking about him in the past tense, even though, yes, so try not to do that. I'm trying to have you avoid that. I cannot
do that.
But
Why
Carm,
do we have to do this?
We talked about something. Now, when I talk to someone like Bruce Beck, no offense, but I feel like
hold everybody.
I feel we've got cords tangled. When I talk to Bruce Beck, there's one thing that comes to mind, and that is this. In my world, the sign of greatness is a New York Times obit, and Bruce Beck will definitely get a New York Times obit, as much as I don't want him to get it for many, many years. Joel Waldman will not get a New York Times obit unless I
told
change
you, I had a brilliant idea how you could get one.
How?
I murder you, and the obit will be Joel Waldman was murdered by his mother.
I mean, Bruce has made it to
let me tell you what. Can I just say?
He made it to the upper echelons.
But this is what I want to. Yes. He's the creme de la creme. He's the top of the top, and what makes it so wonderful that I don't know that. So I treat him.
Yeah, you have no idea who he was.
Yes,
you pretended you did.
I mean, I knew it a drop because of that UFC story that you had with him. But what I'm saying is that we have all these people who are with 330 million people. They are like on top of their game, like Kappas.
Steve Kappas, former president of NBC News.
And I relate to them as people that I just met, and they're very nice, and I don't know I don't have the baggage.
But Bruce is a wizard with words. You saw
he's magnificent.
You're about to hear how he used to do play-by-play for his mom in the kitchen.
He gave us so much.
The other thing about Bruce that I will say, and I'm not kissing his ass, he is a genuine mensch, just a great guy. No ego, no pretense. He's just a good guy.
And it comes across.
It does come across.
All the great ones are like this.
He stays young
in
looking
every
too.
field, the great ones are like this.
You think so?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You have to work on that, Joel.
Okay. We'll be right back with the great, the one and only Bruce Beck. Live from America's News Headquarters, I'm Joel Waldman.
And I'm Eliana Diaz.
We're professional storytellers, trained for over 20 years in tried and true TV techniques to get your brand message out to the masses. Clearly, convincingly, and concisely. We're creatives, out-of-the-box thinkers, doers with the background to prove it. Network news correspondents, on scene at some of the biggest stories, from terror attacks home and abroad to natural disasters across America.
They really talked about two factors. One was the wind. Obviously, we're feeling that now.
We've interviewed the powerful and some pretty powerful players, performers who have won Oscars. Through it all, we've mastered the tricks of the trade, crafting authentic stories that are human, honest, and heartfelt. We are Content Partners.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the main schmooze.
Carm, we've got the guest of all guests. I say that every week, but this week it is in fact true. Bruce Beck is a legend in New York sports. Had you ever heard of him prior to prior to me telling you to read up on him?
Yes, we actually have a history with him, which I won't tell.
Bruce, how are you?
How are you guys? Good to see you, Joel. Carm, it's so good to spend some time with you.
So let's tell the audience real quick, for those who've been dead or underground, Bruce Beck is perhaps the best known New York City sportscaster. He's covered 5 Super Bowls, 3 NBA Finals, 6 Stanley Cups, 6 World Series, the U.S. Open Tennis Championship, the U.S. Open Golf Championship, the NCAA Final Four, 7 Olympics, which is about to be 8 because he's heading off to Tokyo and took some time to talk to us. He also runs a camp. Incredibly, through all this, he is happily married with kids. He is the picture of positivity. Bruce Beck, what is something people do not know about you?
Maybe they don't know that I'm up at 2:00 in the morning studying and getting ready for my next assignment while they're sleeping. Somebody taught me a long time ago that if you're working and they're not, you're getting ahead of them. And not being the most talented person in the world, I always figured, hey, you can do it with hard work and you can grind at night. Maybe they also don't know that I love golf and I'm a golf fanatic and I try to break 80 every time I'm out there. Unfortunately, lately, I haven't been able to do so. I guess those are a couple of things they might not know about me because they do know how much I care about my family and my job and my community.
How often are you golfing? We'll get to the family and community in a minute.
I mean, I only get to golf on the weekends now, pretty much on Saturday and Sundays, because that's where my time is open. And I get up in the morning, especially on a Sunday, and I have to do a show really late at night. So it's kind of a full day, but I still need to get away from work. So golf is a great outlet, and it's chasing perfection, and it's impossible to achieve. And I don't know if I'm going backwards or forwards, but there's something about chasing that little white ball around that course that just drives me
crazy. It does it for you. But I have to ask, do you ever sleep?
I don't sleep a lot, Carm. I love to sleep, but I don't get a chance to sleep much. And heading to the Olympics now, that's like a difficult timing because remember, 13 hours ahead for Tokyo, and we have to do the morning show and the late show. And there's also another show that goes in the middle. So it's a little bit tricky, but it's what drives us, right? It's a great assignment, and it's the opportunity of a lifetime to go to Tokyo to do the Olympics.
Were you ever in Japan? I
have never been in Japan. No, I've been to China several times, but I've never been to Japan. So I'm looking forward to that.
What are you, in terms of covering the Olympics, what about it is the thrill for you?
It's mystical, it's mythical, and it's magical.
I like those 3 adjectives. Can I use it, or you have a exclusive?
He doesn't have a trademark. Bruce, what is your?
Do I have a yes and a counts, or a good like Nedics like Marty Glickman? No, I don't have one.
Carm, who's yes? Who is that?
We just talked about it. I'm 80.
I went to Kutcher's with his son. Marv Albert. I went to Kutcher Sports Academy.
I never knew names.
I actually have a letter from Marv from 1970 where I asked him if he memorized the commercials. He was working for WHN Radio, calling the Knicks and Rangers at the time, and Marv really is the person that inspired me to go into my business. Because he was the voice of the Knicks, which was my favorite team, and the voice of the Rangers, and he was amazing on radio. And in many ways, I tried to follow his path. Obviously, I ended up in local news, but he was at WNBC for many years in local news too. So he was always my hero, and I certainly wish him well in retirement. What an incredible run.
He just announced his retirement, 55 years calling games, and
Didn't he have a son?
He has I just said he has a son named Kenny Albert.
So
him and I were
Kenny Albert does the same thing as the father?
And I bumped into Kenny Albert at the airport recently and told him the story about Bruce Beck and I. Bruce Beck and I met because I was covering a Super Bowl for Fox, and during that time, I met Dana White, the head of the UFC, and I told Dana White, I friggin' hate working at Fox and covering politics. Let me do something. And he said, in 2 weeks, you can audition as a play-by-play guy, which is an art form. And I paid Bruce to coach me, and I actually was a runner-up, I believe, in that.
But Bruce told you from the start. You told him from the start, you cannot learn this in 2 weeks.
It's an art form,
it's
right?
humanly
It's hard to learn
impossible.
in 2 weeks. Yes, I said it takes time. It takes reps, like everything. But he worked hard at it, and we worked hard together.
Yes, you wasted so much time on this guy.
No, it's not a waste of time. It's
No, but
building
as his
foundation.
mother, I thank you.
Yeah, we try. There were so many nuances that go to play-by-play. I've done play-by-play a lot over the years. I still do boxing. I love boxing. When I first started, obviously, I did a ton of play-by-play for MSG Network and Suburban Cablevision TV3. But it does take reps, and it takes a lot of time to understand all the aspects of play-by-play.
But didn't you do the UFC play-by-plays in the beginning?
Yes.
You were one of the first ones,
I
right?
was one of the first. I started with UFC 4. I went up through 14 or 15, and it was the dark days of the UFC. Early days, there were 3 rules: no biting, no eye gouge, no biting, no eye gouging, no fish hooking.
But fish hooking?
It's when you like stick your. It was NHB, no holds barred. Did you work with Rogan at all?
Yes, Rogan was our sideline guy, and he was first time kind of doing that stuff.
Uh-huh.
It was me and Jeff Blatnick and Jim Brown and Don the Dragon Wilson.
Wow. By the way, Carmela and I are going to upend Joe Rogan and beat his podcast numbers. That's our goal.
We are on our way.
Bruce, there's too much to cover with too little time. But what do you think of this whole Sha'Carri Richardson
I heard about that.
controversy?
Controversy. They're trying to be consistent. They cut the length of the suspension down, but you still won't be able to compete at the Olympics. It's a very hard call. And they're just trying to figure out a way to be fair to everyone. But there are 500,000 signatures now that have, aligned themselves to a petition, and they're trying to have this overturned, at least give her a chance to run in the relay. I'm not sure if the outcome will be different. If there will be any kind of change in the ruling, but they're trying to be consistent with what the world is doing in terms of any kind of enforcement with drug-related matters, whether it's enhancement drugs or recreation drugs. Obviously, this is not a drug that helps you enhance your performance.
It relaxes you.
Do you think it's silly in 2021 to have this happen?
I just think it does happen when you're dealing with international sports, that they're trying to establish a level playing field, and it's very controversial. It's frustrating. And yes, like you see, the use of THC and marijuana, it's legal in many states now, and it doesn't enhance performance. But I just think that when you're following certain guidelines and rules, there have to be standards that you have to be consistent with. So it's a very tough one to digest. And I don't know what the outcome is going to be, if it's going to be different than it is now. But I think right now she's just not going to be able to compete.
Mm.
Now, being that this is a mother and son team, and I know that your mom was the mayor of Livingston, right?
Yeah, Livingston, New Jersey.
How did it feel to be in New Jersey? I forgot to say that we are all from New Jersey.
Yes.
We hail from New Jersey.
Wow.
So,
the Garden State.
Yes.
Yeah. He was actually born in New Brunswick.
Carm, what's the question?
The question is, did your mom encourage you to do this? How did it feel to be the son of the mayor?
That's a great question, Carm. I was blessed to be Doris Beck's son. Let's put it that way. It was a great honor and a privilege. She was an amazing woman. She was the first mayor of Livingston, New Jersey. She came from Poland. She emigrated from there with not a penny in her pocket, couldn't speak any English, stayed back in school, and ended up in Newark, New Jersey, in the Weequahic section of New Jersey. A Jewish woman who somehow got out before Hitler attacked her village in Poland. It was called Czechenutza. And my mother rose up and stayed back 2 years when she first started and ended up skipping grades at the end, becoming an English teacher, went to Montclair State Teachers College, then became a councilwoman, a mayor. She was on the board of trustees of St. Barnabas Medical Center for over 25 years, board of directors of Orange Savings Bank. She was a arbitrator on the New York Stock Exchange. She was an amazing woman who taught us all about, courage and dignity and doing what is right. She passed in July 12th of last year at the age of 91, and she was still magnificently beautiful. And her memory is a blessing. It is.
I'm sorry to hear that. And she encouraged you to do what you're doing?
What happened was when I was starting to announce, I would go into the kitchen and my mom would be baking and she would be using different utensils. And I go, Doris Beck now starts to whip the frosting. She's making the move to the cake. Oh, she's got the left side of the cake. Now she's got the right side. And she looked at me like, is this guy crazy?
How old were you? How old were you at this point?
I was 8. I was about 8.
So is that the age where you knew you wanted to do this?
Yes, I started imitating Marv Albert. Right sideline Monroe, deep corner to Busher, hands to Frazier, back outside to Reed. Willis turns back to the basket, jumper, yes, and a counts, and a foul is called on Elvin Hayes, and he will go to the line with a chance for a 3-point play. Timeout. Gene Shue wants to talk it over. So those were the formative years, and
wonderful.
And she encouraged me. She looked at me sometimes like I was crazy. But I think she knew deep down there might be something brewing there, that maybe he wants to be a broadcaster. I don't know, but she never put me down or told me not to do what I was doing, which was turn the sound down and announce the games on TV. I was an athlete who played all the sports, but would announce in the driveway. She would bring out the lemonade. We would play basketball for hours. So her encouragement definitely was a big thing. And actually, my first gig was at Suburban Cablevision TV3, and my mom was doing a show there. The mayor of Livingston actually had a show. And so she was the one that established some contacts and got me in there. And I'm never ashamed to say that my mom was a key to my career.
The stepping stone.
What did your dad think of all these shenanigans?
My dad was a big sports fan, and he was a big supporter of the family, and he played tennis, and he loved every aspect of it. He took us to games, and he was a big man in the mortgage banking field. He was the president of the Mortgage Bankers Association of America and the chairman of a company called Margaret & Company, a mortgage banking company. So he was a man who was always supportive to her. He loved to be called the husband of the mayor. And he also was Bruce Beck's father, but he was really the one that taught us the important lessons in life. Like, you treat everyone the same, whether they're the CEO of a company or a janitor. He taught us the lesson of, there's a saying, good, better, best. My dad changed that to good, best, better. He believed you could always be better than what was the best. And he drove us to that. He taught us the sooner or later theory. It's always better to do the toughest task sooner than later. We have all these expressions. My kids will tell them that you put the parking ticket in the back right pocket because you'll always remember where it is because people lose it. Like, there's just these little messages that I've learned from both of them. They were the iconic couple that I can just say they had a 69-year marriage that if we ever get to that ourselves, and I'm married 40 years happily, it would be a great achievement. They set the standard, and I was really fortunate to be their son. I lost them both in the last 2 years. It's been difficult, but I had them in my life for so long. I think sometimes that makes it even harder.
Yeah. And it's a weird thing.
You should do like a little family documentary.
You know what's where they say
business.
Right. By the way, Roy and Carmela, my dad, may he be blessed for many more years. He's 87. They just had we had a 60th anniversary party for them this past weekend.
I'm going to be exactly in 1 month from today, 82, and he will be 88 in November.
88.
And we had our
day over 62.
He says,
thank you, darling.
She couldn't hear you, but she says thank you.
No, I heard you, a delayed hearing.
So, Bruce, I know your time is limited. One thing, so I worked with the great Ernie Anastas. And there's one thing about Ernie. There was an expression at Fox 5. It said the expression went something along the lines of, even when it rains, the raindrops don't touch Ernie. He walks between them. But Ernie is he's incredibly positive. And I know you know Ernie yourself. And you're like the Jewish version of Ernie Anastas. I've never met a Jewish boy who is as positive, non-complaining, non-whining as you. Does this come from your parents also? Where does this emanate from?
I think a lot of it comes from them. I do complain to my wife a lot.
Good, because
I feel better now. I feel better.
I complain to my kids and to my coworkers that are my sports producers. I think that you tell the ones that you love how you really feel sometimes. But I just think that the wooden quote emanates with me. It resonates with me is probably the better word. And that is that make each day your masterpiece. So just go out there and give it your all and try to put the effort forward. Shoot for the moon, settle for the stars. Try to be the best. If you're not, well, at least you try. And my philosophy is just to give it your all on every project. Sometimes it drives me crazy because I can't possibly achieve it. And sometimes I'm exhausted because I can't do everything that I'd like to do to the best of my ability. But I just think, hey, I'm lucky. I've got 4 grandkids and a gorgeous wife, and I'm doing something that I love. How many people get up in the morning and do something that they really love to do, which is sports broadcasting, but more than just sports broadcasting, interacting with coaches and players and coworkers and general managers and the fans. I love that aspect. I've always loved sports. I wasn't good enough to make it in the NBA. I had a good shot. I was an excellent ball handler. I could go around my back. I could find the open man, but I didn't make it in the NBA. So being a broadcaster is a vicarious thrill. I love the aspect of being around the sports world, even though I'm not good enough to play in it, but I have some perspective from being an athlete and playing all these different sports. So I'd say, Joel, I'm very lucky to have the opportunity to work for WNBC, an iconic station, to be there 24 years and to be able to, fulfill my dreams, which was originally to do what Marv was doing, which was to work at WNBC TV.
A little unrelated but related. Coming here, I said to Joel that Bruce Beck is very generous because he overschedules himself, I'm sure, and he gave us all this time, and we really appreciate it. You know what? I am going to list all his awards and everything that he achieved in the area of awards. So I wrote it all down. And so we are not going to waste our time with you now. Afterwards, when you go get off the air, we are going to do this part for instead of you. I'm stepping in as a announcer of your prize because it's too long. It would take like 10 minutes.
By the way, Carm, do you know who John Wooden is? The quote that Bruce referred to?
John Wooden, no. No, he loves
You got to cut Carmela a break. She's from Eastern Europe.
No. You want to know something? Because there is a joke in the family that I know everything better than everybody else. So he loves to show me. When he has a sports person, he makes me feel like an idiot. Well, who is that?
He's a famous the most famous college basketball coach.
The big thing that you have to know is it's just about the community and giving back to the community. And all of those awards are related, a lot of them, to charitable endeavors, which is just, No.
Some were Emmy's excellence for your work.
Yeah, I'd say it comes from my folks. I think I've learned everything from them. If I'm ever half as good as them, I'll be lucky.
Yeah, you had very high achieving parents too, but you didn't stay behind in the dust.
So Bruce, has Marv ever, aside from your parents, has someone like Marv who you looked up to, has he ever told you, hey Bruce, you did it? Has he ever said yes to you?
No, but I worked with him at MSG and he was always extremely gracious and he would throw it to me on the sidelines. And the first time he said, right now, let's go down to Bruce Beck. it was kind of a thrill. It really was.
Wow.
And he was always incredibly supportive of me. And I remember when my kids had their bar mitzvah, he did the introduction of the family for one of the bar mitzvahs. And he has always been a guy that, I've looked up to, and his brothers, Al and Steve, also I've had a chance to work around them over the years. So it's an amazing family, and it's been a total honor to work, with Marv when I did at the Garden, and I can't wait to see him, to congratulate him in person.
What do you? It must be tough to be, in a way, Bruce Beck's son, because everyone knows who Bruce Beck is, but your kids seem, and I don't know him personally, but I know him from Facebook, super grounded. Like super cool.
Everybody's on social media, Joel. It's crazy.
But no, I mean, do they obviously they look up to you, but I mean, did either of them have aspirations to go into sports, or they just wanted to do their own thing?
One of my oldest son, John, works for JP Morgan Chase, and
Smart, makes money.
One of the big shots in their digital area. He's incredibly creative. He's been with them for over a decade. My youngest son, Mike, is an attorney. He works for a firm named Kasowitz in the city, and he went to the University of Michigan. John went to Boston University, and they both played sports when they were younger. And Mike is encyclopedic in terms of his knowledge of sports, probably better than me. Mm-hmm. And when I was at the Olympics in Torino, Italy in 2006, I have to go to sleep and get up and do the entire sportscast, not just the Olympic news at the time. And he would send me a detailed update from the night before's games. It was a Winter Olympics. So he would give me the reports on the Knicks and the Rangers and the Nets and everything else that was going on. And I would wake up in the morning and there would be description, who scored, what place they were in, how many in a row, what else happened in the sports world. So those guys have been, each of them have done extremely well. Both their fathers, we're lucky to have 2 daughters-in-law that we're really crazy about. We have 4 grandkids. So the boys have done great, but they didn't end up exactly in my business. Wouldn't be surprised if Mike ends up someday in the near future as a guy who's either an agent or a commissioner of a league or a counsel for a team, because he has that love. He's in litigation. And John is all around sports. He sees it too, that, yeah, sometimes it was probably a pain in the neck to be my son, but at the same time, and I was on the road a lot, but they've always made me feel like they wouldn't trade the way I wouldn't trade for my folks,
Yeah, that's beautiful. And
that is beautiful. And that is very beautiful.
The key to my parents' marriage of 60 years is my mother yells at my dad at least 3 times a day. What's the key to your?
Can he hear?
What's the key to your marriage? Yeah, he can hear with his hearing aids now.
I think the key to marriage is communication. You've got to communicate. You've got to have each other's backs. You got to say, what can I do for you, rather than you're a jerk. And that takes a lot of hard work.
I tell you, one of the reasons our marriage works is that I married a psychiatrist. I knew what I needed,
This interview feels like I snorted cocaine, which I've never done in my life, because I know we have such limited time. But Bruce,
how many minutes
tell us quickly about your camp.
It's hard to be my wife because I'm difficult and I'm running from place to place, and my schedule is holidays, weekends, and nights. So she deserves much more credit than I do for making this marriage work. But it does, and we're college sweethearts, and we really are very lucky, both of us, I think.
Bruce, tell us about the camp. What's going on with the camp?
So we do a sports broadcasting camp. I've done it for the last 20 years. I started out with Ian Eagle in New Jersey at the Yogi Berra Museum, and I did it with Ian for 15 years. In the last 5, I've done it with my wife as the camp director and veteran in charge of administration, and I handle the content for the camp. And what we do is we basically spawn the next generation of sports broadcasters. We give them a chance to practice on some of the different exercises like teleprompter reading, interviewing athletes, breaking news, commentaries. play-by-play. They learn all the nuances of the industry. It's a fascinating way for young kids.
I know what you are thinking.
Bruce,
I know. I bet you were thinking your 2-year-old. You'll send there.
No, that's another question. But Bruce just mentioned like 5 guys. Every one of them is Jewish. You got from Howard Cosell to Marv to Bruce to Iron Eagle. Why so many Jewish guys in?
Because they cannot get into the NBA.
They can't play
yeah, that's a great point. If they could shoot a jump shot, or if they could score from the right wing, we wouldn't be talking about it. That's a great point. I don't know. I have so many.
So Bruce, I got. Hold on, I have to tell Bruce. So I got into the parenting game late in life. I've got a 7 beautiful daughter, beautiful 5-year-old daughter, and I now have the only boy out of the Waldman clan. My sister has 5 daughters. I have Judah Mack. When does he start playing? I guess I wanted him to be the UFC lightweight champ of the world. That's a little rough, but he needs to be a pro tennis player. I think I played tennis growing up, but when do I start him on the court? He's 2.
I think 2 is fine. 2 or 3. Start hitting a ball. Put the ball on the tee for the baseball.
Beautiful.
I have a 2-year-old Ethan. I got him kicking soccer a little bit, just trying to catch, develop the coordination of throwing back and forth. It isn't perfect. They find their own way, but just expose them to sports in different ways. It's great because it teaches you teamwork and it teaches you fundamentals and discipline and dedication and all the things that they should know about life.
See that? I'm late. And Bruce, what's the
Joe always gets free advice.
In your humble opinion, what is the greatest sports call of all time if you had to pick one?
Do you believe in miracles? Yes. Al Michaels.
Do you know what that's from, Carm?
Something happened that somebody didn't win in the last minute.
Somewhere between 2 teams. I think you got it. It
1980 Olympics, United States. Now, a call like
How
that.
would I know that? This is not.
A call like that, do you believe in miracles? Is that something that Al Michaels, you think, thought of prior to that moment, or it just came out completely organically?
I don't think so. I've talked to him about that. I think it was what he felt. He's that good of a broadcaster. I think it just came. I think that's what's made it so great. What was the one with I can't believe what I just saw? Was that Vince Scully on Kirk Gibson's home run? That's got to be up there. My friend Bob Wolf called the Alan Amici touchdown the greatest game that was ever played. I think Sam Rosen's call in '94, and this one will last a lifetime, when the Rangers won their first cup since 1940, and they exorcised the ghosts of Red Dutton to win their first Stanley Cup in 54 years. That definitely was up there.
Sam Rosen, another Jewish guy. He looks like he should be an accountant, but
it was a toss-up.
That Ted Robinson call when Greg Louganis won gold at the Olympics. He spun air and water into gold. That was brilliant.
Wow.
Air and water into
gold. I remember that one.
That's poetic.
There've been a lot of great calls, but I think Al's might be the best.
Now, what is the age group in your camp?
13 to 21.
And they don't. It's a sleepaway camp, or
no? This is just this year. It's virtual because of what's going on in the world still.
Okay.
And the fact that some kids are vaccinated and some are not vaccinated, and there's no venues that were really this year able to welcome outside groups. So we did it virtually for the last 2 years. Normally we're at a college setting, but it brings kids the opportunity to just start calling the action and start practicing to be a broadcaster. It's
I bet you already see some of them who will be doing this series. I mean, you see the talent at this point.
Absolutely. You could see it in a minute. Sometimes kids grow, and I've seen a kid from last year to this year make incredible progress, but sometimes you just see natural talent, and they just need the reps. And they just need an opportunity, a vehicle to call this stuff, to get a chance to do it. It's like riding a bike or playing in a game. You just have to do it. You have to get better. You have to keep hitting the tennis ball against the wall. You have to keep taking that jump shot and swishing it. And you have to keep like Keith Jackson once said to me, the key to writing is rewriting. I believe that's true. Just do it over. Somebody told me today, nothing good was ever written. Great things were rewritten. but nothing good was ever written.
Interesting.
That is interesting. Keith Jackson, his catchphrase was, "Oh, Nelly."
Oh, Nelly. Oh, Nelly. It was a belly washer down there in Norman, Oklahoma.
You know who my dad's favorite is of all time? I think I told you this. Don Dunphy.
Oh, yeah.
And that guy, you listen to that. That guy called play-by-play for boxing on the radio. It's insane how quick you have to be for that.
I worked with his son, Bob Dunphy, for many years. We did a show called Boxing the Sweet Science, and we used Don for some reflection pieces. So I got a chance to work with Don for a few years down at Gleason's Gym. From Gleason's Gym at the foot of the Brooklyn Bridge, we welcome you to another edition of Boxing the Sweet Science. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bruce Beck, along with Gil Clancy. And that was the way the show would go.
That's awesome. Bruce, you want to do a quick happy 60th anniversary play-by-play for my parents, and then we'll call it a day?
Okay, so what is Carmela's husband name?
Roy Waldman. Roy and Carmela.
Roy and Carmela, 60 years of marriage, 60 years of elegance and excellence, 60 years together. What a wonderful time. What a wonderful relationship, giving for each other and to each other. May your lives continue to be blessed in the years ahead. I hope your 60 lasts forever.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bruce, you are truly a gentleman, a mensch.
Yes.
Have a safe trip to the Olympics.
So as I said, I am going to do this part now. After
read that tonight. Read that tonight to Roy. Let him know all the good stuff. Okay?
No. I'm going to read it into the podcast.
No, you don't have to read it.
Yes, I want
Hey, Bruce,
to.
I'm booking you in advance for my kid's bar mitzvah. You're doing the intros.
Okay.
All right, Bruce. Thank you.
So
Thank you. We'll send you a
all
link.
the best to you and your family.
Thank you. We're back in a moment with the news schmooze.
Thank
See
you.
ya, Bruce.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
And we were going to get right into the news schmooze, but Carm says she insists on reading the list of Bruce Beck's awards. Go for it, Carm. Let's hear this.
This is not a complete list. This is just, I am going to miss a lot, but I want you to know who we just interviewed. He was New York State Sportscaster of the Year 9 times by the National Sports Media Association. 9 times.
Keep going. Speed it up, Carm.
Twice named New Jersey Sportscaster of the Year.
By the way, he covers Rutgers, too.
In 2006, Beck received the New York Emmy as Outstanding Sports Anchor. In 2011, he won the New York Sports Emmy for his interview with Eric LeGrand. Who is he?
He is a Rutgers football player who was paralyzed.
2017, Ithaca College awarded distinction
That's
for
his alma
excellence
mater.
in journalism to him. And in 2008, Met West Jewish Sports Hall of Fame, he became a member.
You know what? That might be the new thing instead of the New York Times obit. What was that? The West Met?
Metropolitan West Jewish Sports Hall of Fame.
Maybe I can get into the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. You know who else is in that Hall of Fame? I'm blanking on his name. Jerry, the guy who helped me with real estate. He passed away. It'll come to me. Jerry played for University of Maryland. Bruce will know this, and he played for the Sixers.
He knows also everybody.
Jerry Greenspan. Greenspan.
All right. So,
but what did you think of Bruce's calls, like in the kitchen, to his mother? I mean, that's
move it a little in because it will fall.
Nothing's falling, Mom. Listen, what do
I think of him?
That's
doing
true
already,
passion. Let me rephrase the question. Who do you think has more happiness? A guy like Bill Gates is a miserable slug who's getting divorced from his wife, who has all the money in the world times a billion, or a guy like Bruce Beck who likes calling how his mother bakes a cake in the kitchen and gets passion from that?
I think that definitely, I am not comparing Gates with Bruce Beck, but I think that he's very American, because if he still carried around the Eastern European burden, the origins his mother, then he couldn't be so positive. Positivity is a very American thing, and he is so wonderfully positive.
I must have inherited your Eastern European.
I think you are carrying it because
but
I
was
don't.
touching. He teared up
it.
about his mother, which
yes,
is
I noticed that he teared up.
He did. That was very touching. I know he's very close with them. May their memories both be a blessing. They both passed away recently.
I always give free advice. I told him, did you hear me?
No, I wasn't listening to you as usual.
Yeah, as usual. I said to him that he should do a little documentary on his parents. His parents were unusual people.
Yes.
His mother
very
especially.
Unusual.
Especially his mother was unusual. She even baked.
I'm starting to think that with being a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, you could add sportscaster to that. Because all these Jewish kids, they can't play sports. They figure out the circuitous route.
Exactly, because they're skillful.
Carm, I'll tell you honestly, everyone thinks I'm kidding, but
no, I don't.
So I'm back reporting for a local station, but in my mind, it's like if I can't be the best, then why be anything at all?
Okay, may I say something?
It's time for the news schmooze, Carm.
I wanted to interview you about your experience.
After this, you can do that. We're going to start off with a news schmooze. Okay, so, Carm, a new COVID-19 variant that vaccines are reportedly less effective against, called the Lambda variant, has been classified as a variant of interest by the World Health Organization. It's currently circulating around South American countries at a very high rate, and some are saying that it could be immune to the vaccine. Are you concerned?
Of course I'm concerned.
Does it give you anxiety when I read that story?
No, today I made a new edict.
What is that? By the way, I've been up since 2 a.m.
I know.
Pretty cheerful for that. Considering that.
I hate to drive home with you. You'll be pretty crappy.
By the way, I just love talking to Bruce. He has such a good energy. It reminds me of myself.
It's like the thesis and the antithesis.
What is
you
the
are
point?
The antithesis.
Bruce said something interesting. I caught it, but no one else did. He said, look, I didn't go national, even though he does national stuff for the Olympics. He said he's local. And it's like, that hits me to the core because to me, it's like, what am I doing if I'm not trying to be the very best? But then your priorities shift. Like I have kids. I cannot be on the road with little kids all the time.
Listen, we'll help you.
Okay, on to the next story. About 65% of respondents in a Pew poll, which is very credible, said they think there is intelligent alien life on planets other than Earth, and about 87% said UFOs are not a security threat to the U.S. at all, and do not represent a minor threat even. According to the poll, only 12% of American adults had heard or read a lot about the UFO report before its release. A lot more have read about that, but basically this report came out, as you know, from the federal government, saying that there's something going on with unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Joel.
Yeah.
Joel. 60, that's again, Americans are very optimistic.
65%. By the way, I heard on the Joe Rogan podcast, and Rogan, once again, I'm sending you an invite to come on the show because we will be beating your numbers soon enough. So it's not a threat.
If you threaten him, he will not come. It's not a threat,
it's an invite. He was talking about how him and Quentin Tarantino were talking about how Dan Aykroyd, the actor from Ghostbusters.
He's from another planet.
He's a diehard believer, like a die-in-the-wool believer in aliens and extraterrestrial life.
So what?
Do you find that interesting? I mean,
I don't find it boring or interesting. It's irrelevant to me.
Okay, on to the last story. Boiling lobsters alive will be banned under plans being drawn up by ministers in England to strengthen the welfare rights of crustaceans and mollusks. The government is preparing to recognize that lobsters, crabs, octopuses, squids, and other invertebrates feel pain as part of say that they feel pain. This is part of legislation that will formally acknowledge that animals are sentient beings. I bring this up for 2 reasons. Number one, I am a believer that animals are a higher being, if you will, than humans and deserve only the best, especially my Mabel Rose. The second reason I bring this up is I recently, about a week or 10 days ago, took my entire family to Red Lobster. Because, believe it or not, it reminds me of my childhood when you used to make me that white flounder. Now, I know it's not a kosher restaurant, but I get the white flounder with tartar sauce. And when we went in there, we saw...
They were the crabs, the
lobsters.
Swimming.
We saw the lobsters. And then when we left, Vita said, why is there only one lobster now? There were two when we got there. I didn't really have the heart to tell her.
You know what, Joel? I agree with you 100%. 100% I agree
Why, you
with
think elephants are less important than us?
Do you know that my mother, may she rest in peace, she could not eat chicken because once she saw a chicken slaughtered.
I cannot eat chicken. I'll tell you why. Tom Green is a comedian. He used to have his own late night talk show. He had testicular cancer and asked the doctor to keep the testicle that was removed and then brought it in a cup on another talk show.
I am not doing this. Stop right now.
And he said it looks and tasted like chicken, making it unclear whether he tried it or not.
Do me a favor. Let's get serious, because something very, very serious and tragic happened in right where you live.
Yes. Okay. Time to get serious. Yes.
All right. So stop saying nonsense and being the little boy, the bad little boy, who is playing with frogs.
How are you affected by Carmela's referring to the Surfside building collapse, which is a unbelievable tragedy? I live a few blocks away.
We decided that it would be, since Bruce had to leave and could give us only a half hour, and since Joel spent the last 2 weeks reporting, actually the collapse of the building in Surfside happened at 1:30 in the morning, and at 6 o'clock in the morning he got a phone call, and he went in and he worked a 16-hour
16-hour day, not a
16-hour day reporting on this, and he has been doing this now for about 12 days. And
I mean, just for some background, I left Fox News of my own volition, and as your favorite expression is, you were blown out of the water. I blew myself out of the water. I never thought I'd be back in news. And
but this literally happened. Joel lives, I would say, 5 blocks away.
5 blocks.
5 blocks away where this happened. And that the community of Bay Harbor, where he lives, and Surfside are like very closely linked. And anyway, he even the first day he already met people he knew in the town hall of Surfside.
You know, maybe it's not all about money. Maybe it is about. Maybe it's about passion. Where did you learn?
Did you learn from your father and me that it's all about money? The
truth.
No,
but if you have a ton of money, people return your emails.
No, people make one very nasty.
But like these people in the building, they went to bed at night and they woke up and they're not here anymore. They probably had about 3 seconds of confusion and panic. But I mean,
no, the whole thing had a very strong impact on everybody, and both negative and positive impact on everybody. People did rally, and living right next to it, you could go about your daily business, but you felt the impact of it.
It's still going on.
It's like sitting on your soul. And it was the most sad thing that happened in the last few years. I cannot think of a...
Well, I spoke to my photographer today, and he's been in the market for 38 years. He says this is the worst and biggest tragedy that he's covered in South Florida. And I asked him, I said, how does it compare to Parkland, which is the school shooting in Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah, that was horrendous.
That's horrific because it's kids, but the scope of this is much bigger. And this was also, his rationale was, we live in a crazy country with a lot of lunatics, and there's been a lot of school shootings, but this is something that's like unprecedented. It's tough to rank the order of, what is a bigger tragedy.
And then watching Joel every day, reporting on it, that also brought it back, because he interviewed families and so forth. And in a certain way, it brought back times when he used to work for the network, and I used to watch him.
I'll be honest, I was up at 2 and I went over to your condo.
Today.
I went over to your condo and I tried to crash for an hour and I heard banging and I was like, there's no way in hell I'm taking a nap. You're on the 27th floor. That would be some collapse from up there.
That would be a horrendous, but the building is relatively new and every day they write us letters.
I don't think my 87-year-old dad would do too well in a building collapse.
Especially since he's in a wheelchair.
Yeah,
this is already really like playing the violins. And then today, just to add a little excitement, we were saying that in Miami there is never a dull moment. First there was the Surfside, which is still going on, and it's terrible.
It's Surfside.
And then we had the hurricane,
we
didn't feel that strongly because it had the decency to go the other way.
We had migrants being rescued and a lot drowning, and then we had the Haitian president being assassinated
which you would ask.
It wasn't even a full day. It was about 3 hours.
And you would say, what does the Haitian president have to do with us? But there is a huge Haitian community in Miami called Little Haiti.
My photographer said, I dare you to say Haitian, like Asian instead of Asian, and say it quick. But I did not take the challenge up. Carm, I'm just sitting here looking out the window, looking at the leaves, once again wondering what the purpose of life is. And if I should even be, like, do I even work in news if I'm not working at the upper levels of the upper echelons?
Listen, if you don't see him anymore on any podcast, it's because I killed him.
Which, by the way,
he's annoying me.
I don't want to.
I don't think it's funny. I mean, Woody Allen had a shtick for 20 years. You should not copy Woody Allen's shtick. I heard he was totally non-neurotic. He only had the shticks on
bullshit.
No, he was also neurotic.
No, but I got a very nice note from Steve Kappas, who we had as a guest on here, and that made me, it's amazing. People don't realize the
importance of their words,
or the impact they have on people. But just that little text from Steve Kappas meant a lot to me because he's one of these guys that I really don't think gives a crap about the fact that he's going to have a New York Times obit. I think he's doing things for the right reason, not like me.
Yeah.
And he was just happy to see me reporting on an important story, whether it's a local level, national level. To him,
no, but I think I tend to be too easy on myself, and you tend to be too hard on yourself. And we are not doing any more psychoanalysis. What else is on?
Just one last thing. I was listening to Quentin Tarantino on Rogan, and it, like you listen to Bruce Beck talk about how he called play-by-play of his mother baking. And Quentin Tarantino worked in a video store, and what links them together is that they have this unbelievable passion for what they do. They don't care about the money. And I don't know, I love news. I have a passion for it, but maybe I'll just be a mediocre news guy my whole life. In fighting, they call you a journeyman. Maybe I'll just be a journeyman.
Not everybody can. My stepfather used to say that in an orchestra there is only one first violin. And not everybody can be the first violin, but the orchestra needs everybody.
Do you know how to spell violin?
Yes.
How?
I think it spells the same as in French. Wait a second. Violon.
Yeah. I thought you were going to spell it with a Y because you say violin. Okay. We'll be right back with 3 questions for Grandma.
It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
Okay, we are back, and Carmela says she may not play this last game anymore, our segment called 3 Questions for Grandma, which are questions my 3 children ask.
Yeah, but if they
By the way, I felt great that Bruce said I could start Judah in tennis and all these other things.
You know what? I have to tell you something. Maybe after we finished here. You remember you bought that cheap little plastic ball and bat?
Yeah.
That it was standing on something?
Yeah.
Judah did a terrific job with that.
It's called a T-ball.
T-ball. Anyway, ask the questions because we are holding up people. They want to do something more meaningful.
Question number 1. How do you make plastic?
How do you make plastic?
Yes.
No idea.
I don't really either. I was hoping you would know.
No, I don't.
It's melting something.
It's a chemical process.
Okay. This was, I thought, was an interesting question. Why do chickens' babies come out of their butts? Meaning the eggs. Because they drop out from behind.
It's not from their butts.
Comes out of the female genital organ?
Well, yes, because the rooster cannot have an egg.
What is a chicken? It's not like...
Chicken is the female. And
no, I know that, but it's like we're mammals, right? What's a chicken?
A bird.
Yeah, but what is a bird? Is it like a reptile?
Bird is not
it a reptile?
No, it's there are categories of families. There are the birds, there are the mammals, there are the whatever, the
You know
insects.
Who would know the answer to this?
No, I know for a fact that
David Camp would know the answer to this. Because he's smart.
No, because he's
school.
curious and he looks it up.
So would Chud. Last question. Where does poo and pee go after you flush the toilet?
That's a very good question.
Yes.
I really think they go in the sewer.
And then what?
Then they are going the sewer processing plant.
Yeah.
And they make sure that they are putting chemicals in it to neutralize it and so forth. And believe it, in some countries, they reuse the water for irrigation.
This was as I said before, it feels like I did drugs for this episode, probably partly because I've been up since 2, partly because Bruce said he literally had like 11 minutes, which we stretched him to like 30.
I always feel that they're so generous in the end. I make them feel guilty by the sheer fact that I'm an old mother.
He does that Marv Albert impersonation, right?
He does.
Yes.
He's great.
Do you have a better understanding and respect for sportscasters now? It's like a true art form.
Yes, I have it, okay?
Kenny Albert calls hockey, that's Marv's son, and then there's a guy named Ian Eagle, spelled Ian, I-A-N, but he pronounces Ian Eagle.
Wind it down.
If you saw Ian Eagle, he looks like your accountant's brother's insurance bond salesman, is what he looks like. But he's a great sports podcaster. Carm, what do you think of the episode? Looks like you're tiring out.
Yes.
You must have gotten up at 2.
No, but I spend time with you.
I have 2 more days of getting up at 2 a.m. Will I survive?
Yeah, because you are surviving the survivor.
Love you, America. Great episode.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye.
Yes.